a globally respected theologian, an anti-apartheid campaigner, and a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Just some of the ways in which Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu has been described by so many people. So in the early 1970s, he expanded from pure theology to social justice activism by campaigning against the apartheid government. Tutu was the first black cleric elected as the Bishop of Johannesburg before being inaugurated in 1986 as the first black Archbishop of Cape Town. So to pay tribute to his legacy, this part of his legacy at least, we're joined now by Professor Pratap Kumar, who is with the School of Religion, Philosophy and Classics at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Prof, it's great to have you with us this morning on the program to talk about this specific part of the Arch's legacy. Perhaps let's begin here. How do you make that transition, or at least how did he make that transition from pure theology and then taking his theology into social justice activism?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to all of your listeners. And first of all, let me express my deepest condolences to the family of Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his family, friends, and to the whole nation of South Africa. I think, having been a theologian and a minister in the Anglican Church, I think very early on he experienced obviously the apartheid system's racist policies, and even as a student, and then when he became a teacher and then a minister, he had his own personal experiences. But I think the important thing that he learned very early on is to stand for two simple things, that is justice and peace. And he wanted, in no uncertain terms, justice for all. I think justice was an important component of his theology. But at the same time, he demanded that justice not through violence, but through peace. In other words, he wanted peace. At the end of his interaction with his enemy or opponent or whatever, he thought he should be able to shake hands with him, no matter how much he disagreed with his opponents. He wanted peace with his opponents. He wanted to be able to sit with them and have a conversation, have a communal kind of feeling. And I think he learned these two important concepts very early on in his life. And as he began to enter into his ministry and became an important figure as a dean of the church, and then became an important member of the South African Council of Churches, and when he became especially the Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches, he had an opportunity to travel through a lot of African countries and interact with many of his colleagues overseas, in the West especially. And he became an important spokesperson for the oppressed people in South Africa. And I think that was the foundation on which he actually built his campaign against apartheid system.
Prof, I want to ask you about something that you just pointed out about the Arch, that he wanted to engage with you even if he was disagreeing with you, and he wanted to shake hands afterwards. I mean, for a leader like him, who was principled even in his disagreements with his own church, is that kind of leadership an anomaly, not only in our country, perhaps around the world as well?
Well, this is precisely why Arch stands out among the millions. He has this uncanny characteristic of being very human, humble, and very loving. He is very charitable in his approach to his opponents, and there is a certain kind of naivety, if you might say, but also certain sense of innocence in his approach. In other words, when he criticized somebody, you would recall, he very vigorously criticized the Zuma administration. And yet, he was very charitable when he criticized. You know what he said? We are warning you. And he repeated, we are warning you that we will pray. Now, listen to this. I mean, he's not saying we are warning you to take you to court or whatever. He says we will pray. We will pray. We prayed for the apartheid to fall, and we will pray for you to be accountable. If you misrepresent us, we will pray that you will fall. Now, there is a sense of innocence and very straightforwardness in the manner in which he approached his opponents. And therefore, even his opponents could not really oppose him, treat him any viciously or badly, or because they understood where he was coming from. There is a sense of, straightforwardness, genuineness, and he spoke with integrity. And there is no malice, there is no guile in his speech, in his approach. So there is that humanity that he expressed in everything he did. And with people that he loved, interacted closely. I mean, he was friends with people like Dalai Lama, great leaders of the world. And yet he was very humble. He was able to laugh with them, smile with them, and not only with great leaders. He was able to smile with children, the ordinary people in the street. He will dance with them. He will cry with them. He will smile with them, and so on. So that's a leader very rare to be found.
Absolutely, and we continue to celebrate him here in our own country and certainly around the world as well. Prof, let me thank you for your time this morning, and thank you so much for those wonderful reflections of the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. Professor Pratap Kumar is with the School of Religion, Philosophy and the Classics at the University of KZN.